Hey guys, last time I made a video comparing the areas of Kamurocho to the real-life Kabukicho in Yakuza Zero. Today I'll be doing a similar look at the second area in the game, Sotenbori. It's based on the lively area of Dotonbori in Osaka. It's one of the most visually distinct areas in the city, and has a similar bustling feel to Kabukicho, but without the seedy undertone. The layout of the in-game area is very similar to real life, but there's a bit more artistic license that's been taken when compared to Kamurocho. The two main streets in the game, which are called Sotenbori Street and Shofukucho, they've been rotated 180 degrees. So let's use the famous crab as an anchor point. In real life, it sits here, whereas in the game, it sits here. What's interesting though is that the shrine, where the clowns stand, is actually in its real life position, which is here. So not everything is flipped over, it's just some of the aspects. The best way to showcase the similar areas might just be to do a loop around the main canal. So let's start with the aforementioned crab. This famous, eye-catching landmark is pretty much identical to the real-life one. This whole street in Osaka is full of big models of food hanging from the outside walls. Just around the corner from this is probably the most famous icon in the area. It's basically like the Piccadilly Circus of Osaka. It's a big wall of lit-up adverts. In the modern day Osaka, there is the famous Gulika, like Running Man ad. Obviously this is different in the 1980s world of Yakuza Zero, but the gist is more or less the same. Behind this starting point, just outside of the enterable area of the map, you can see the flashy archway entrance for Sotenbori. Here's a photo I took from my visit to the same place. Once you cross the bridge, you're faced with the entrance to a roofed shopping mall area. The one in Yakuza Zero lacks the H&M for obvious reasons, but as a whole, the in-game street is a lot more interesting than the real-life counterpart. I presume this was to spruce up the game world, but in real life, Don Quixote is about the only interesting thing there. The rest of the street looks kind of boring. The famous department store is there, however, and it looks pretty much like it does in real life. Behind the main street is the shopping mall that I mentioned before. There are several of these in the area, and the design seems to be kind of a generic mishmash of them all. From the road, you can also access the waterfront, which you can also do in real life through one of the narrow side streets. The waterfront itself is actually quite different, but only because it hasn't been rejuvenated in the 80s. If you play Yakuza 5, for example, you'll notice that the waterfront is actually very accurate in the game, but that's because it's set in the modern day. In Yakuza 0, it's set before there was any work done to the city. Once you get to the end of this road, you can cross over again to the less touristy bridge. Like the waterfront, I suspect this whole area got remade in the 90s or the 2000s, which is why the bridge looks so basic. Once you get to the other side though, you're standing at the other end of the main Sotenbori street. You're immediately faced with the twisted model of a dragon above a noodle shop, which is replicated in the game. Further down the street, you get the big pufferfish model and the bustling people walking around the lampposts. Again, this basically looks just like real life. Going to the end of this road brings you back to the big crab. Having spent some time in the Dotonbori area, the atmosphere is very similar to real life, albeit, with much less people in the game, obviously. They've even got nice little touches like this gorilla bar, which is actually the penguin bar in real life. Anyway, that about sums it up for Yakuza 0. When 6 comes out in the West, I would love to go have a look again and see how they've updated the area to match the modern times. But until then, thanks for watching, and have fun with the great game.